Welcome back, Camden Catholic. We're going to make this one pretty sweet, short, and to the point, just so y'all can get a little bit more stuff done on the Reformation, of course, before the big game starts, all right? So we left off in class the other day talking about Northern Renaissance artists, Albert Dürer, Jan van Eyck, and we left off with the Arnold Feeney wedding, right? We'll continue to talk more about them, but make sure that you have those two guys in particular. But we have, who can tell me real quick what were the two writers we talked about from the Italian Renaissance? Good job, Julia. We talked about Niccolo Machiavelli with his writing called The Prince, and of course that was about government usage of power. Should you be feared? Should you be loved? What should you do with absolute power, right? And then we also talked about Baldassare Castiglione's Courtier, which was, of course, how one should act in this new era of the Renaissance following the Middle Ages. So, of course, this is the Northern Renaissance occurred about 50 to 60 years following the birth of the Italian Renaissance, and so it's going to have its own writers as well. Now, the one that you know the best is, of course, William Shakespeare. Playwright from Runnymede, England, wrote a lot of different tragedies, divine comedies, things like that. Main thing about him is, of course, it's all written in a poetic style, right? Yeah, with a iambic pentameter, right? I'm going to cut this. Okay, a metered style, right? And just meter style, sorry. It was written in meter. Thank you, sweetheart. And iambic pentameter. Okay, thank you, sweetheart. So anyway, so it's what? 10 syllables each line. Anything else? He wrote in what? 5 iambs? In a line, pentameter. So 10 syllables apiece. Had a lot of really good flow, and it was considered Renaissance by comparison to Middle Age writings because there was basically none. Because remember, what was the recorded history of the conquering of England? Anybody remember that? The big, long tapestry we looked at? Good job, Laura. The Bayeux, right? So William Shakespeare's alone, his style alone of using sentence structure with 10 syllables in meter and a rhythm was very, very influential, of course, to the Northern Renaissance experience. A lot of y'all know a lot of his famous plays. Romeo and Juliet, of course. I'm actually watching Titanic right now, so it's drumming up some feelings about Leonardo DiCaprio. A lot of different ones. Midsummer Night's Dream is my personal favorite because I think Puck is like the coolest character ever. So Sir Thomas More, though, also don't forget poor Sir Thomas More. All right, everyone constantly forgets poor Sir Thomas More. But he was a very, very big deal. He's almost like the Plato of the Northern Renaissance ideals because he wrote about utopia, the perfect society, and if people will ever be able to achieve it. A lot of people actually believe that Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, when they wrote their Communist Manifesto, drew some of their ideas from poor Sir Thomas More, right? So don't forget poor Sir Thomas More, all right? Yay, Magna Carta. Now, moving on. So this, of course, architecturally speaking, is one of the newer Renaissance styles as well, and this is Shakespeare's Globe Theater. This is actually built in a Tudor style instead of your Gothic styles, which we looked at earlier. And when we looked at the Duomo and the Florence Chapel in Italy as compared to Notre Dame in France, right? So we'll talk about a lot more interesting things that comes to this, but like I said, let's keep this short and sweet and keep going, okay? So this is the outside of the Globe Theater, and this is also and this is, they're honors kids, they can take it. So this is also one of the very first multi-leveled seating theaters ever, okay? So fun fact real quick, in all of Shakespeare's plays when he was actually a part of the writing, all of the parts were played by men. So Romeo and Juliet was played by a fella instead of a lady. Oh, and apparently, according to the wife, you paid a penny, like a penny, yeah. A penny. That's like a shilling, right? Right. For like all yeah. Yeah. All the mezzanine seats where you could sit, that's where the wealthy actually, and then like the general assembly, or the general assembly, another word? General admission seating, like down here, you would pay a penny shilling to stand there, ironically enough being closer to the stage itself. And you had to stand for 4 straight hours, according to the wife. So she's an English teacher, so she knows all this stuff. Now, here's the big thing, though, right? We talked about the Renaissances themselves, but the Renaissance is actually going to lead to one of the most earth earth-shattering movements through Europe. It is literally going to be the wedge that drives politics into two parts, philosophy into two parts, everything into two giant pieces. And that movement was called the Reformation, all right? Now, particularly some of y'all are saying, well, it just split the church. That's not true. And y'all are honors kids, so you know that what huge construct literally made the Pope almost like a politician when he claimed power over kings and rulers. You know this one, sweetheart? Okay. It's called papal supremacy, right? So when the Pope claims papal supremacy, that means the Catholic Church is involved in government. So if the church splits, of course, leading to Protestants and Catholics, then you're going to have Protestant leaders who aren't associated with the church anymore, and then the dominoes keep falling, and literally this movement of the church in Europe led to a massive, massive, massive trend that literally shaped the entire history of it. So people began to use humanist ideas, and what's humanism again? Good job, Sam. Humanism is when you look at the world around you, secular things, and you ask questions of why. Why does this exist the way that it does? And it's the study of individual achievement and things like that. So if you have humanist ideas, though, what does that do to your faith? It does cause you to ask a few what? Exactly, ask a few questions. So people began to question the church. And by the way, this is the Holy Bible app. If any of you need to know that, it exists for religion. So anyway, the Protestant Reformation was a movement that split the church in Western Europe and led to the establishment of a number of new churches. Now, underneath new churches, you need to also write this key word, denomination, all right? Now, denomination applies to virtually everything, any kind of group. However, denominations in the church are going to be smaller subgroups of Christianity. For example, a denomination is Baptist, Anglican, Episcopalian, Methodist, Puritan, Presbyterian, all kinds, okay? So several of you at home actually listening to this may be a denomination of Christianity that's not Catholicism. But however, following the Reformation, now Catholics are considered a, good job, Miss O'Donnell, a denomination, right? So because it's the giant umbrella. Okay, so the church fell subject to, well, why would this happen, right? Why is this going to get into? Miss O'Donnell, we will talk about the bad popes tomorrow, I promise, okay? So the church fell subject to financial corruption, abuse of power, immorality of popes. Popes are going to begin to get caught up in really worldly affairs like competing with princes and kings for power, okay? So the Catholic Church begins to stray into the secular realm. They start worrying less about the teachings of Christ and actually imparting good values and start worrying about the political card, who's in charge. Where's our tithes coming from? How much tithes are we earning? What are we going to use them for? Et cetera, et cetera. So, and also, popes began to lead really, really wealthy lives. They supported the arts. They hired artists to beautify their churches. Look at the what? The Sistine Chapel. Good job, Gabriella. Now, to finance new projects, the church began to charge high fees for services like marriages, baptisms, and churches also began to sell these things called indulgences, all right? What I need you to do is underline that word indulgences like 3 times. And underline it, star it, circle it, huge. Like have some like shiny boom lines coming off of it. I don't know what you're into, Ray. You can have hearts and squiggly lines. I don't care. But it's an important word, okay? So we're going to keep moving. You can pause to get that extra stuff if you need it. But an indulgence was a lessening of time that the soul would have to spend in purgatory. Now, as good Catholics at home and also other good kids, I know that most of y'all know what purgatory is, right? Now, indulgences were typically, according to the Bible, were good deeds. How do you atone for things? By being good to one another, et cetera, et cetera. So these are not things that can be bought or sold, right? But churches began to literally write out scripts that would sell out time in purgatory. How is this very, very biased? We talked about social class structure under the Renaissance on Friday, right? So how is this not fair? How is selling time out of purgatory not fair? Fantastic job, Bears. I heard the both of you over there. Now, you can't allow, like, that just means the wealthy can do whatever they want and buy their way out of purgatory, right? And the poor cannot. So, very, very, very biased. Now, of course, remember, purgatory is where the soul atones for sins that are not severe enough for hell. I like to call it heaven's waiting room, right? It's where you go to wait and atone for your sins. So, continuing on, we got like 2 more things and then we're done, okay? So, early reformers, attempts anyway. So, these 2 guys in particular were guys that tried to get the Reformation started but failed. because the Catholic Church sent them to the what? Their court. Anybody remember what that was called? Huh? Good job, Haley. The Inquisition, and they were actually tried, and both of them, I believe, were burned at the stake. So John Wycliffe was one of them. Underline him because it's important to know of early failures, okay? So John Wycliffe believed that the church should give up its earthly possessions, and he's going to be sent to the Inquisition and burned at the stake by Pope Alexander VI. Not a very nice guy. That's the dead body guy. We'll talk about him again, I promise, on Monday. So, and then this guy, Yanhus, was a priest that spoke out against immorality and how many of the churches were, or some of the popes had illegitimate children, were breaking Benedictine rule. And if you remember from the Middle Ages unit, what's Benedictine rule? Huh? Y'all are on point today. Fantastic job, Annie. That's the 3 rules that monks and nuns had to live their lives by, right? Obedience to the church leader, poverty, and chastity. So he spoke out against this. He saw it, he observed it, and he was excommunicated and also burned at the stake under the Inquisition. So, as you can tell, things are getting really, really rough right now. But enter the main man, of course, this guy right here, and we'll talk about him tomorrow. His name is Martin Luther. He was a young monk from Germany, and we'll literally get the ball rolling on the Reformation tomorrow. But also, don't forget, one little sub-note. The Reformation, the Renaissance, and the Age of Exploration were all occurring at the exact same time. So literally Europe is just being like shaken, and Western civilization is just being just completely re-racked and going all different kinds of directions. But we'll continue with this later. This is going to be it. Have fun watching the Super Bowl. Look forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Have a great night.